guys, today I decided to make a video about why I chose the Yamaha Yxz out of all the different side-by-sides on the market. I'm also going to go over why I chose the Sport Shift SS model with the paddle shifters, and then I'm going to explain why I would choose a 2019 and up model Yxz if you are looking into Yxzs. So let's get into it. There are four main reasons that made me purchase the Yamaha Yxz over all the different types of side-by-sides. I'm going to start with number 4 and work my way up to 1. Reason number 4 would be the sound of the engine. The Yxz has a really high revving 3-cylinder engine, and it's also got a manual transmission, so you can hear the engine revving and shifting through gears, and it just sounds awesome. Unlike any other side-by-side out there, it kind of sounds like a crotch rocket the way it revs so high. So when I'm shifting, I shift around 9,000 to 10,000 RPMs. And I mean, it just sounds mean and aggressive, and it adds another layer of fun to the drive. So that brings me to reason number 3 why I purchased the Yxz. It was because it is a manual transmission. I grew up riding sport quads, dirt bikes, dune buggies, things like that. All of them were manuals. I just think being able to shift through gears adds a lot more fun and excitement to your ride. Being able to drop the clutch, throw some dirt, drop down a gear around a turn, slide the back end around. It's a lot more exhilarating than just hitting the gas and brake all the time. Being that this has the sequential 5-speed direct drive transmission, that means there's no belt. So like on a Razor or X3, you would have a belt, and you see on a lot of those Razors and X3s like a belt temperature gauge, so you can monitor how hot your belt's getting. So if you're really ripping on it and your belt's getting hot, you have to kind of calm down your riding until your belt cools down so you don't blow it. And belts are pretty expensive too. So I mean, you can rip on this thing all day and you don't have to worry about a belt. So that's a really awesome thing. The second reason I purchased the Yxz was because of reliability. I wanted a machine that I could take out and rip all weekend, do general maintenance on, clean it up, put it away for the week while I work, and then the next weekend I want to be able to get it out and go ripping again. I don't want to have to work on it every other weekend or have it down for an extended period of time, like half the summer or something like that. I want to be able to ride whenever I want to. So reliability was a big deal for me. I was interested in a lot of different side-by-sides. The X3, Razors, Turbo S mainly, XX, Articat, or Textron I guess. Even the Talon. The KRX wasn't out at the time that I was shopping around for a side-by-side, but I would have looked into that too. But what I did was I joined different forums and Facebook groups and kind of monitored what the main issues of each side-by-side were and how often things occurred. And I found that the Yamaha Yxz and the Honda Talon seemed to be the most reliable side-by-sides, and coincidentally they both have manual transmissions with no belt. That's a lot of, what talked me into it. But also they're lower powered machines, so without all the horsepower you're probably not going to brake as much, so that makes sense. Also, some of the numbers could have been, Razors and X3s are definitely, they sell a lot more of them, so maybe you see more issues, but from what I noticed, the general consensus was that Yxzs and Talons are more reliable in general. I've owned my Yxz for about 2 years now, and it's got about 1,500 miles on it. I try to ride about every weekend in the summer, and I do a little bit of riding in the winter, but not a ton. But I try to get out and ride as much as I can, but I mean, this thing has been absolutely reliable. It's never had one issue. I mean, I rip on it real hard, and I do take care of it. I do all the maintenance, oil changes, transmission fluid, diff fluid, cleaning the air filters. I mean, I do a lot of maintenance on it, but still I've never had one failure, and that is just amazing. I'm so happy with it. Reason number one, and the main reason why I purchased the YXZ, was because of price. When I was searching for a side-by-side, I was really torn between the Yamaha Yxz and the Can-Am X3, and I had decided that if I was going to buy an X3, it'd be the top of the line XRS 72-inch wide big horsepower machine. So I did some research on the X3. I found that it was going to cost me $32,000 out the door, but after some research and talking to some Can-Am X3 owners, they said there was a handful of things that I needed to upgrade before it was reliable out on the trail. And I talked to them, and they said I need to think about upgrading radius rods, possibly the front A-arms, because they're designed to crumple in an accident, but they were crumpling a little bit too easily, and they were going through A-arms a lot. And there was something with a rear hub or something, like they were wallowing out a hole in the rear hub, and there was like a fix for that needed to be done. And then something with the radiator fan bracket, it needed a new bracket or gusset for the fan. And also some guys were recommending like a frame gusset kit. So by the time I was done, it was like $36,000 or $38,000 before this X3 would have been reliable out on the trail. And then I did research on the YXZ. They wanted $18,000, which is what I paid for mine. They said maybe you would want to get the Weller rear frame brace, which was $100, and mainly bolt-in application, so that wasn't too bad. There's some small issues that they said you could run into, but aren't big issues at all. Like some guys are saying the tie rods are weak, but a lot of people said unless you're bouncing it off rocks, they're really not that bad. So basically I was finding that the YXZ from the factory was pretty reliable. So I had to ask myself, is the X3 really gonna be twice the fun for twice the money? And I mean, the two machines are really comparable. I mean, I decided that no, I didn't need to spend double the price to get an X3 when I was going to be just as happy with the YXZ. After buying the YXZ and owning it for a couple years, I would say I'm very happy with my purchase. I mean, this thing is such a blast to drive. I love shifting through the gears, and it's so fast. I got it tuned, and now it does 94, 96 mile an hour, so it's plenty fast. I don't need it to go any faster. I don't have it turboed. I don't really feel like I need a turbo. It does everything I want. I mean, it goes as fast as I need to on trails. It just rips. It's a lot of fun. I love the sound of it, especially now that I got the Dasa exhaust. It sounds amazing, and I am absolutely happy with my purchase. That being said, do I still want an X3? And the answer is yes. I would love a little bit more suspension travel and just kind of a bit more power for jumping, mainly jumping. I see we go to a lot of group rides and people with X3s are jumping pretty high, and the YXZ just can't build power fast enough to hit a lot of those jumps real big. I'd like more power, but do I really need to send my $18,000+ machine in the air? The answer is no. So unless I win the lottery, I probably won't buy an X3 in the near future, but we'll see. Now I'm going to go through the pros and cons of the Yamaha YXZ. The first thing I'm going to talk about is a pro and a con, and that is the looks of the machine. So when I first saw the Yamaha Yxz around 2016, the very first one that came out, I thought it was the absolutely ugliest machine I'd ever seen. It was horrible looking to me. But then throughout the years, I heard the engine, how it revs out, and I watched some people race them, and it looked like a blast. The stick shift looked a lot more fun than the Razors that were out at the time. So I got kind of into them a little more, and then the looks kind of grew on me. I wasn't absolutely in love, but then I got looking into them a little more. They came out with the 2019 models, kind of changed up the looks a little bit, and then I really liked them at that point. But even now that I own one, like one day I'll be like, man, that is a beautiful piece of machinery. The next day I'll be like, that is a wedge-shaped ugly turd. It looks like something my kid would have drawn up. It is a horrible looking machine. So it kind of, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But the looks are kind of a pro and a con to me. I'm going to keep going with the pros of the YXZ right now. So the next point would be the seating position. I really like the seating position of the YXZ. It's really low and you feel like you have a lower center of gravity. It feels a lot more racy, like a sports car sort of. And there's quite a bit of room in the cab too. I'm 6'1", like 250 pounds, and I fit in there really well. It's really comfortable. I will say the Turbo S that I sat in, it felt like I was sitting up really high, and I was sitting at like on top, kind of like a utility vehicle, like my dad's Kawasaki Mule or something. It seemed real high, and the cage seemed pretty narrow. It didn't seem as safe. I didn't like the feel of that. I did like the X3 and Talon when I sat in those weren't as bad, but I really do like the YXZ seating position. The next pro is the width of the machine. The Yamaha Yxz is 64 inches wide, and originally I did want a 72-inch wide machine for stability, but after I bought a side-by-side, I found that around our cabin in northern Michigan, there's bridges that are about 68 inches wide, and I don't think a 72-inch wide machine would fit down there. We had my buddy with a KRX, which is like 68 inches, and he was scrubbing on both sides to get across that bridge.
Can I fit?
Yeah. So really the 64-inch wide fits down a lot more trails than a wider machine would. The next pro is that the YXZ is very fast. Stock, a YXZ would do about 80 miles per hour, but after a tune for like $200, it'll go between 94 and 96 mile an hour, and that's really fast in a side-by-side. That is cruising. And I don't feel like I need it to go any faster. I don't have a turbo or anything. It's real fast. It's great for high-speed trail riding and also dunes, going pretty quick in the dunes, wide open stuff. I mean, it's a blast. It's got plenty of acceleration. I mean, it's a lot of fun. The next pro that I've already kind of talked about is that the YXZ does not take a belt, so you don't have to change any belts or watch belt temperatures. You just ride, and I mean, you go and go. You'll go on a group ride and with a bunch of side-by-side guys, and somebody will have to change a belt. There's always constantly people changing belts. You see belts on the side of the trails, and I mean, people are already always in forums just asking, hey, what's the best belt so I don't have to change it every other ride. And I know there's things like shimming and stuff that makes belts last longer, and different things you can do, and throttle control, but it's really nice not having to worry about a belt. It's great to be able to just go and go and go. Now I'm going to go over some of the negatives of the YXZ. The first thing on my list, and probably the main negative of the YXZ, would be the suspension. It does have a very stiff suspension, and you do get kind of bounced around a lot, and it's a very aggressive ride. It's very stable. Like, it feels planted. It doesn't have a lot of body roll like some Razors that I've driven. It's very planted and predictable, but it's a pretty rough ride, and I wish I had a little bit more travel to soak up some bumps better. I like the way it drives, but like for a passenger, I'm sure they would like a little more comfort. The other thing about the suspension is that when you're jumping, I've seen a lot of videos of the YXZ where they jump and the back end comes up in the air and the front end nosedives. And I've seen videos from Shock Therapy just saying that the YXZ suspension geometry is not that good. And there's a lot of guys that say like a revalve or dampening or just shock adjustments or shock relocation will fix the issue, but there's definitely some sort of an issue there. But I've jumped my YXZ a few times, and as long as I have the jump pretty long and flat, it jumps pretty straight. I haven't taken it off anything real big because I am very worried about it nosediving. I've seen a lot of bad videos, so I would say it's not the strongest at jumping stock, and also the suspension could be better. The next negative would be that Yamaha does not offer a YXZ with a factory turbo. This is one of the big reasons that I feel like Yamaha is missing a lot of sales, is because everybody wants a turbo machine now, but like you can get a turbo, like a GYTR turbo from Yamaha for an extra $5 or something, but still I feel like there should be a factory turbo option out there. The next negative on my list would be that Yamaha does not offer the YXZ in a 72-inch wide version. I know that being 64-inch wide was a pro on my list because I can fit through bridges and tight trails, but I feel like if I had a 72-inch wide, that more comfortable suspension and better like jumping characteristics would probably be more beneficial than, you know, fitting through a few things. So it's kind of give and take on that one. The last thing on my negative list would be that YXZs aren't that great for rock crawling and mudding. It can definitely be done. It's just a lot more difficult, especially with like a clutch pedal. Just being manual, it's a lot more work for rock crawling than just hitting the gas. And the YXZ, it builds a lot of its power up in the high RPMs, so when you're rock crawling, you really got to lay on the gas to get the power out of the machine, so you're really jarring it and kind of bashing it to get up hills. Actually, I don't know if you've checked out Blown Budget Off-Road on YouTube. They do a lot of rock crawling. Back in the day, they had YXZs, and they have some gnarly climbs in YXZs, and the YXZs are just so entertaining to watch because you have to just go all out and rip up the hill. They were really fun to watch. They've upgraded to Razors and X3s, but I'd suggest you check out Blown Budget Off-Road on YouTube. It's a really good channel to watch. But like I say, rock crawling can be done. It's just a lot more work and a lot more abuse on the machine than it needs to be. As far as mudding, as long as you have the right tires, you can make it through quite a bit of stuff in the YXZ. And I've made it through quite a bit of mud, and it does pretty well. But as far as deep mudding, like where you need like portals or something like that, I've seen a lot of videos and comments where people, they get stuck in the mud and go back and forth and just kind of rip on it. And these things, once you get them stuck, it tends to really abuse the clutch, and you'll have to replace the clutch plates in these. So I would say it's not the best machine for mudding. Now I'll go over why I chose the SS Sport Shift model YXZ over the standard 3-pedal. In case you're not familiar with the Sport Shift model YXZ, the standard 3-pedal YXZ has a clutch pedal like a normal manual vehicle, and then it's got the shifter in the middle that you can up and down for gears, but you have to take your hands off the wheel. The Sport Shift model doesn't have a clutch pedal. It applies the clutch automatically, and all it has is a up and down paddle on the wheel, and you don't have to take your hands off the wheel to shift. You just hit the button, it automatically applies the clutch and shifts by itself. It's really awesome. I really like the Sport Shift model because shifting through the gears is just so fast. You don't have to take your hands off the wheel, and you just tap the paddle and it automatically applies the clutch, and the shift is just instant. I mean, you can just shift right through the gears. A lot of 3-pedal guys, they'll say, oh, I can shift through gears faster than that SS could, and I'm really doubtful about that because the SS just shifts so fast, and you don't have to move your foot for the clutch, you don't have to move your hand off the wheel. It's just so fast to rip through the gears. I love it. Another thing I like about the SS model is since there's no clutch pedal, your left leg won't be tired after a long day of riding on the trails, like 6+ hours. With the machine controlling the clutch for you, it's just gas and brake, and you do have to shift with your hands, but I mean it's not exhausting or anything, and you could ride, I mean, all day, and it's no big deal. A lot of people do prefer the 3-pedal YXZ for big horsepower builds because it's just cheaper and easier. Originally, the SS model YXZ could only hold about 200 horsepower before you had clutch issues, but now with products like JTE Boost Launch, you can build a big horsepower Sport Shift YXZ. It's just a little bit more money. Another thing I do like about the Sport Shift YXZ is that it has launch control. So all you have to do is hit the brake and then hold in both pedals, and you can rev up the engine, and then when you want to launch, you just let go of the paddles and you take off like you're dropping the clutch. It's a pretty neat feature. It's a little bit finicky, but once you get it, it's not that hard to do. It's kind of fun. The last thing I wanted to mention about the Sport Shift model is that it is a lot easier to learn how to drive it and a lot easier to teach people how to drive it than like a manual vehicle where you have to use a clutch. It eliminates that clutch factor out of it, so you just have to worry about shifting up and down on the paddles. And like my wife, she knows how to drive a manual, but off-roading, when you have to do clutch work, she kind of doesn't, she'd prefer not having to use a clutch. And the Sport Shift model allows her to shift and do everything but not have to worry about the clutch, so she absolutely loves it. Now I'm going to talk about why you should get a 2019 and newer YXZ if you do decide to get a YXZ. In 2019, Yamaha made a lot of big upgrades to the YXZ. Probably the biggest change they made was moving the radiator from the front of the machine to the back. 2016 to 2018 YXZs, they had an issue with dirt flying up in the radiator since it was mounted in the front and very low. Dirt would pack into the radiator and then you'd have overheating issues. Some people tried to solve this by putting like a home heating filter in front of the radiator, so after every ride they could peel it off, put a new one in so it stays clean. Overheating was kind of a big issue in those years YXZ. Now with the radiator in the back, I haven't heard really anybody having any overheating issues, and I know I've cleaned my radiator and it's been really clean. It stays clean, it's tucked up in there nice, gets a lot of airflow still. I really like it. Also, I've heard of people saying that in the summer in a 2016 to 2018 YXZ, you can feel the heat just coming off the radiator since it's in front, but in the 2019 model, it stays pretty cool in the cab in the summer. In the winter, it might be nice having that heat inside, but I don't do a lot of winter riding, so I'm not too worried about it. Yamaha also upgraded the gearing in the 2019 Plus YXZ. It's supposed to be a lot better for crawling and more versatile gearing instead of just like flat out fast desert racing. It's supposed to be good for crawling, good for everything. I've heard that it's a lot smoother than the previous year's YXZs, and I know that the 2019 gears are more desirable for the YXZ, but I've never actually driven a 2016 to 2018, so I don't know what that would feel like, but a lot of people do prefer the 2019 gears. Yamaha also upgraded the brakes on the 2019 Plus YXZ. They also upgraded the brake lines from rubber to stainless brake lines, so that's a really cool feature. Yamaha also upgraded the tires on the 2019 Plus YXZs. They're now 29-inch bighorn tires. Another awesome upgrade that Yamaha made to the YXZ in 2019 was that they beefed up the engine with stronger engine internals. So now the 2019 Plus model is ready to run a turbo from factory. That's really awesome because the 2016 to 2018 models, you had to kind of build the engine yourself with new studs, gaskets, rods if you wanted to run a turbo. But now you can run a pretty decent sized turbo, pretty decent horsepower with the factory engine, so I think that's really awesome. Alright, I really hope this video helped you. Maybe you were on the fence about buying a YXZ or just interested in them. I hope you got something from it. If you want to dig a little bit deeper into YXZs, I have a lot of YXZ videos on this channel, a lot of trail riding content. If you buy a YXZ, I have a lot of modification and install videos, so check those out. There's also quad videos on the channel and soon to be snowmobile videos. I have a amphibious coot that we took out on the water, so just a lot of cool content, so check that stuff out. If you like what you see on the channel, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. We're just over 400 subscribers. We're really hoping to hit 500 soon. I know it doesn't seem like a ton, but that's a big milestone we're really hoping to hit. So I appreciate everybody who watches these videos and just hoping to help out. Thanks. See ya.